The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. Stars burned in the distance, and cold worlds drifted in the dark, but something felt wrong. Every listening post across 100 empires began to pick up strange signals, soft, rhythmic pulses that came from the direction of Sol, the human home system. No one believed it at first. Humanity had been silent for decades, almost forgotten. They had been broken after the siege of Sol, their fleets destroyed, their colonies burned. The galaxy had moved on. But now, something was stirring again. On the bridge of the Zarth Dominion battleship Ultor, Commander Threx watched his radar screen with unease. His sensors officer kept checking the readings, her tendrils shaking as she spoke. "Sir. I'm picking up multiple warp signatures. At first, it was 10. Then 100. Now. I can't count them all." Threx frowned. "Identify the source. Who's moving fleets that large?" The officer's voice was barely a whisper. "They're coming from Sol." The bridge went silent. Even the hum of the engines seemed to fade. No one spoke for several seconds. Then, another officer turned from his station. "It can't be the humans," he said. "They're extinct. The last of their kind died on Luna." Threx stared at the display. The signals were spreading fast, thousands of them, then tens of thousands, all forming lines that reached across the solar system. "Extinct or not," he muttered, "something is rising from Earth." Outside the Ultor, the stars shifted as the ship's long-range cameras focused on Sol. The view came through grainy and distorted, but what they saw made the crew's blood run cold. Around the blue and green planet of Earth, hundreds of enormous ships lifted from the surface, their engines burning white-hot. More emerged from the shadows of the moon, from the wreckage fields of Mars, from the black shipyards hidden under Titan's frozen seas. Then thousands more appeared, each one carrying the same marking, a red insignia of a clenched fist around a star. The symbol of the Terran fleet. Threx whispered to himself, "Impossible." The communications officer turned, her voice shaking. "Sir, it's not just one fleet. There are hundreds. 200,000 vessels, warships, carriers, dreadnoughts, forming up in battle lines." 200,000? Threx repeated, disbelieving. "There aren't that many ships left in the entire Dominion." "It's them," she said quietly. "It's humanity." The galaxy had always remembered the humans, but only as a warning. They were small, fragile creatures compared to most races, but they fought with a madness few could understand. They called it courage. The Zarth had learned that the hard way when they invaded Sol centuries ago. They had won, yes, but at a cost so heavy that the victory never felt like one. Entire armadas were lost just to break the human defense line. Billions of lives burned away in nuclear storms. And yet, even dying, the humans had promised one thing: we will return. Now, as Threx watched the fleet grow, that promise was being kept. Across the Milky Way, alien worlds went silent. Trading hubs closed. Border stations shut down their gates. The Galactic Council, which had ruled in peace for nearly 100 years, went into emergency session. No one could understand how humans had built this armada. Their planets had been ashes. Their population had been counted in millions, not billions. But somehow, they had rebuilt, quietly, secretly, under the radar of the entire galaxy. For decades, they must have worked in silence, forging weapons, constructing ships, and preparing for this day. On Earth, the sky was filled with fire. Massive engines roared as the last warships broke through the clouds, joining the endless lines in orbit. The planet below glowed with lights, cities alive again after long darkness. The voice of Admiral Riavos came through the command channels, calm and clear. "This is Fleet Command to all vessels. Operation Reclamation begins now. For every world we lost, we take back 10. For every human life taken, we answer in kind. The galaxy will remember who we are." The command repeated across all frequencies. Then silence followed, a deep, expectant silence that stretched through the void. The ships aligned into formation, sleek black hulls reflecting the dim light of distant suns. The great engines charged, and one by one, they began to vanish into warp space, streaks of blue light disappearing into nothingness. In moments, Earth's orbit was empty again, leaving behind only the ghostly trails of their departure. On the Ultor, the radar display went wild. The signals multiplied, spreading in every direction. Threx watched helplessly as the sensors lost track. "Where are they going?" he asked. The communications officer swallowed hard. "Everywhere." Threx turned to his first officer. Send a message to the Dominion High Command. Tell them the humans are back, and they're coming. His first officer hesitated. Sir, if this is true, it means, Threx interrupted, the war we thought we ended has only just begun. The message was sent. It traveled across light years, bouncing through relay stations and colonies. Everywhere it went, it brought fear. Worlds that had once mocked the fall of humanity now locked their doors. Armies began to mobilize, but deep down, every soldier knew it wouldn't matter. You can fight armies, fleets, or empires, but not ghosts that refuse to die. And so, for the first time in centuries, the galaxy fell silent. No one dared speak. No one dared move. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath as the 200,000 warships of humankind disappeared into the black, leaving behind a promise carved in fire and vengeance. In the darkness of his bridge, Commander Threx whispered a single word that echoed through the empty air. Run. The galaxy trembled. Word of the human fleet spread faster than light, carried on terrified whispers and emergency transmissions. No one had seen such movement in thousands of years. Not even the great empires, the Zarth Dominion, the Vith Coalition, or the Illyri Conclave, had ever assembled more than a few thousand ships at once. But humanity, long thought extinct, had launched 200,000. It was no mere show of strength. It was a statement. In the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council, leaders of dozens of species gathered under a dome of glass and starlight. Panic filled the air. The meeting floor vibrated as voices shouted over each other. The Vith Chancellor slammed his metal claws against the table. They must be stopped now. The humans are savages. If they reach the outer systems, they'll burn everything. A soft voice answered from across the room. The Illyri ambassador, a tall, graceful being of silver skin and blue light, stood calmly. You speak of stopping them, Chancellor, but tell me, how do you fight ghosts? No one replied. The Illyri continued, her glowing eyes flickering. Your fleets cannot find them. Your sensors cannot track them. They move like shadows. Perhaps we should speak, not fight. The room erupted again. The Dominion's war representative, General Tar, shouted, You would speak to monsters? They have not answered a single hail. They want blood, not peace. At the far end of the table, the old archivist of the council raised a trembling hand. His voice cracked, but carried through the chamber. I have studied the Terrans. I know their history. They do not begin wars, they finish them. If they are coming, then someone gave them reason. That silenced the room. Outside, the great city world of Rune burned with neon lights and frantic movement. Fleets were being armed, civilian ships fled into the void, desperate to escape the storm they knew was coming. Everywhere, the same phrase echoed across networks and comms, the humans have returned. Far from the chaos, in the quiet orbit of Mars, Admiral Rhea Voss stood on the command deck of the flagship Eidolon. The bridge was silent except for the hum of engines and the soft rhythm of machinery. Through the viewport, the fleet stretched across the void like a wall of metal giants. Her reflection stared back at her, tired eyes, silver uniform, the faint scar across her cheek, a memory from Saul's last battle. Status? She asked. Phase 1 complete, replied Commander Arlen, her second-in-command. All sectors report full readiness. The Reclamation Armada is in position. Awaiting your order. Rhea nodded slowly. Any contact from the Council? Arlen shook his head. They're scared, ma'am. Scrambling fleets, sending messages, but no real action. Good, Rhea said. Let them fear us for a while. Fear makes them careful. She walked toward the center console and placed her hand on the interface. The ship's AI flickered to life, Hera, the artificial intelligence that had guided Earth's rebirth. Admiral, Hera said in a voice both soft and cold. All systems report optimal performance. Targeting protocols are ready. The fleet awaits destination coordinates. Rhea stared at the holographic map of the galaxy. Thousands of stars glimmered in the dark, each one marking a world that once laughed when humanity fell. Set course for the Zarth Dominion border, she said finally. They started this war. They'll be the first to remember why that was a mistake. Acknowledged, Hera replied. Coordinates locked. Warp drives charging. The command rippled through the fleet. Massive engines flared to life, glowing like suns. The hum grew louder, deeper, until it filled every ship, every heart. Across the armada, soldiers strapped into seats. Engineers prayed in silence. Pilots whispered to the ghosts of those they had lost. Then, as one, the entire human fleet vanished into the dark. In the Zarth Dominion capital, alarms rang through every fortress and station. Commander Threx's warning had reached them hours ago, and already their skies were alive with panic. Fleets scrambled to defend their worlds, but there was no clear target. No one knew where the humans would appear. The Dominion's Grand Marshal shouted orders, his voice cracking with fear. Mobilize all ships. Deploy drones to every sector. Find them before they find us. But it was too late. The humans did not come from one direction. They came from all sides. The first attack began at the edge of the Vorn Belt, a region rich with mineral stations. Without warning, human ships decloaked in orbit, their hulls black and angular, reflecting no light. Before the Zarth defense fleet could react, beams of plasma fire erupted from the void. The alien ships disintegrated in seconds. On the Zarth command bridge, panic turned to horror. "They're not answering our hails," cried an officer. "They're not even communicating." "They don't need to," said the Grand Marshal quietly. "This is their answer." In less than an hour, the entire Vorn sector was gone. Everywhere, the same pattern repeated. Human fleets appeared, struck with precision, and vanished. They didn't loot, didn't occupy, didn't talk. They only destroyed military targets, shipyards, orbital fortresses, fuel stations. It wasn't random. It was surgical. It was vengeance planned down to the smallest detail. Back aboard the Eidolon, Rhea watched as reports came in. Sector after sector burned red on the tactical map. "How long before they understand?" she asked. Commander Arlen frowned. "Understand what?" "That we're not trying to conquer them," she said. "We're showing them what it feels like to lose everything." The crew fell silent. Through the window, a dying star flared in the distance, lighting her face in a ghostly glow. "Let them remember," Rhea whispered. "Let every world see our fire and know this truth: humanity does not fade. Humanity returns." The ship's AI broke the silence. "Admiral, next wave coordinates confirmed." Rhea's eyes hardened. "Then let's remind the galaxy what fear really feels like." The engines of 200,000 ships roared again, lighting the dark between stars. The galaxy held its breath as humanity's wrath spread like a storm, cold, merciless, and unstoppable. And across the endless night, only one truth remained. The age of silence was over. Humanity had awakened. The Zarth Dominion had always been proud. Their fleets had conquered a dozen species, their empire stretched across 3 spiral arms, and their war record was unmatched. But now, that pride had turned to fear. Entire sectors had gone dark. Stations reported strange readings, then nothing at all. No distress calls. No debris. Only silence. The Dominion's high command gathered inside the Hall of Iron, its walls glowing with the pulse of emergency lights. Grand Marshal Renix, a scarred and ancient warrior, stood before a sea of trembling officers. "They strike without warning," Renix growled. "They take our worlds, our stations, our fleets, and leave us with emptiness. This cannot continue." An intelligence officer projected a map in the air. Hundreds of red marks blinked across Dominion space, lost systems. "We tried tracing their warp signatures," the officer said, voice unsteady. "But they disappear mid-jump. It's like their ships are folding through reality itself." Renix clenched his fists. "Impossible." "Sir," the officer said quietly, "they're humans. Everything they do should be impossible." Outside the Hall of Iron, the people of the capital world, Zarth Prime, filled the streets in panic. Refugee ships fled into orbit, colliding in the rush to escape. Families left homes, soldiers abandoned posts. All the while, above the planet, the sky shimmered faintly with a strange blue haze. The Dominion's defense network tried to scan it, but every frequency came back empty. The system reported no objects present. But to anyone who looked up long enough, the truth was there, a ghostly outline, stretching across the stars. The humans were already here. Aboard the human dreadnought Nemesis, Commander Rael Kovac watched the planet from high orbit. The ship was colossal, larger than any station, its hull a smooth, dark alloy that absorbed all light. His crew worked in silence, every motion rehearsed and efficient. There was no cheering, no celebration. Only purpose. "Targets confirmed," said the operations officer. "Planetary shield generators locked. Surface batteries online." Rael nodded. "Transmit to the Admiral." Seconds later, Admiral Rhea Voss appeared as a hologram beside him, her expression cold, unreadable. Report. The Dominion's capital is defenseless, Rael said. Their fleets are scattered. Orders? Voss studied the view, millions of lights across the planet, a civilization that had ruled for ages. Begin orbital lock, she said. No bombardment. Not yet. Her image faded. Rael turned to his crew. Initiate blackout protocol. The Nemesis extended its arms of light into the void. Invisible waves pulsed outward, rippling across the planet. Within minutes, every light on Zarth Prime flickered and died. Power grids failed, cities plunged into darkness. The people screamed, thinking it was an attack, but no explosions came. Only silence. Down below, the Zarth citizens looked up at a black sky filled with unfamiliar stars. Their communication devices failed, their ships shut down, their orbitals fell still. Above them, humanity watched without emotion. From the shadows, a small transmission broke through the silence. A Zarth news vessel, one of the few ships not disabled by the blackout, sent a desperate message into deep space. This is Zarth Prime. The humans are here. They have not fired, but we are blind. The message cut off mid-sentence. On a distant planet, deep within Council space, that final signal played on loop. The image of a panicked alien pilot, the darkness swallowing her words, echoed across news networks. And with it came a single, chilling phrase that spread faster than truth itself: the humans have taken the Dominion capital. But Rhea Voss knew better. They hadn't taken it. They had spared it. For now. Inside the Eidolon, she watched the galaxy's reaction from her command chair. Dozens of intercepted transmissions filled her screen, begging, bargaining, threatening. The Council demanded negotiation. The Dominion promised vengeance. And the weaker empires simply asked one question: what do you want? Rhea smiled faintly. They still don't understand, she said. Commander Arlen looked at her. Maybe you should tell them, ma'am. Not yet, she replied. They need to feel it first. The same fear they gave us. The same silence they forced upon our world. The fleet regrouped at the edge of Dominion space. Every ship carried scars from past wars, but they moved as one, disciplined, united, unstoppable. Engineers worked to refuel, pilots rechecked coordinates, medics tended to exhausted crews. Yet, no one spoke of victory. Every soldier knew this was not conquest. This was judgment. Back on Zarth Prime, Grand Marshal Renix stood on a balcony overlooking his darkened city. He could still see faint blue lines above the clouds, the shapes of human ships watching from orbit. His voice was low as he spoke to his aide. When I was young, I fought them at Sol. I saw their world burn. They screamed, but they never surrendered. I told myself they were finished. But now. The aide swallowed. Now they've come to finish us. Renix's gaze hardened. No. They've come to remind us. He turned his eyes to the sky, where one of the massive ships glided slowly across the horizon. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply was. A silent shadow of humanity's fury. Tell the Council, Renix said finally. We'll meet them. But not with fleets. With words. It was a decision born of desperation, and perhaps, a spark of wisdom. But as the Dominion prepared to open talks, Rhea Voss already had new orders in motion. Her ships were moving again, this time toward the Outer Rim, where another empire waited, the Aleri Conclave. They had once sold weapons to the Zarth during the siege of Sol. Their hands were just as bloody. The stars trembled once more as the human fleet shifted course. Somewhere far away, an old recording played again and again in the Council archives, a human voice, centuries old, from the last broadcast before Sol fell. If we vanish into the dark, the voice said, remember this, we are not gone. We are waiting. And now, the waiting was over. Across the galaxy, panic spread faster than light. Markets collapsed, communication lines overflowed with warnings, and entire populations began to flee from planets near human movement zones. The Galactic Council, once a symbol of order and civilization, now sat paralyzed in fear. No one could reach the Dominion's capital. No one dared to send fleets into the silence that had swallowed half the quadrant. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy looked toward Sol, and trembled. In the city of Velna, on the Aleri homeworld, glowing towers reflected the shifting colors of the atmosphere. It was a world known for art, trade, and peace, untouched by war for centuries. But now its skies were filled with evacuation ships. Families dragged children through crowded ports, merchants closed shops that had thrived for generations, and every broadcast repeated the same message: the humans have returned. Do not resist. Inside the conclave's high tower, the Aleri leaders met in secret. The air shimmered with holographic projections of burning worlds. Prime Chancellor Ever watched silently as reports came in: Dominion fleets destroyed, colonies gone dark, and strange human messages appearing on hacked frequencies. The messages were brief and cold, translated perfectly into every language. Do not interfere. Do not flee. Do not forget. Each transmission was followed by silence. A nervous aide spoke: Chancellor, should we prepare our defenses? Ever's silver eyes reflected the light of distant explosions on the hologram. No. If they wanted us dead, we would already be dust. They are not attacking blindly. They are demonstrating. Demonstrating what? Asked another. That they remember. Far away, on the outskirts of Aleri space, a lonely trading moon named Tyran 4 orbited a dying star. Its inhabitants were mostly refugees, wanderers, and scavengers. Life was hard, but quiet, until the day the stars shifted. At first, they thought it was a storm. The horizon darkened, lights flickered, and gravity wavered. Then the traders saw them, hundreds of human warships gliding silently through the void, their engines dim, their weapons inactive. They moved like a fleet of shadows, slow and patient, encircling the moon. No warnings. No fire. Just presence. The moon's defense systems powered up, preparing to lock targets. Then, one by one, the systems shut down. Every reactor failed at once. A voice echoed through the comm channels, monotone and without emotion. This is the United Terran Fleet. You aided the Dominion during the siege of Sol. You armed them with weapons that burned our cities. You will now be silent for one cycle. And with that, the connection ended. The moon's power grid remained dead for an entire month. When it finally reignited, the human ships were gone. The inhabitants said nothing after that. No one dared to speak against them again. Back on Earth, deep within the rebuilt fortress beneath the Andes, Admiral Rhea Voss stood in a quiet observation chamber. Below her, a massive holographic map of the galaxy flickered with red and blue lights, each one marking a system that had fallen or surrendered. Behind her, Commander Arlen entered, carrying new reports. Admiral, he said. The Aleri have sent a transmission. They request a meeting. Peace negotiations. Rhea didn't look away from the map. Of course they do. They've seen what silence looks like. Should we respond? Yes, she said, after a moment. But not with words. He frowned. Then how? She turned, her expression calm, her voice cold. Show them the memory of Earth. That evening, across the entire Aleri network, every screen flickered and changed. No one could stop it. The same image played everywhere, an ancient recording, found in the ruins of Sol. It showed a burning planet, its skies filled with enemy ships. Human cities turned to glass. The screams of billions filled the air. And at the end of it, a human child's voice whispered, "We remember." Then the screens went black. The effect was instant. On the Aleri homeworld, people wept openly in the streets. Soldiers threw down weapons. The Chancellor himself knelt before the great window of the council tower, unable to look away from the stars. "What have we done?" he whispered. But the humans did not attack. Instead, their fleets moved outward, surrounding systems but never striking first. They waited. Observed. Watched. And the longer they waited, the more the galaxy broke itself apart. Empires turned on each other. The Dominion accused the Council of betrayal. The Council accused the Conclave of treason. Trade routes collapsed, alliances fractured, and every ruler began building walls around their worlds, afraid that the next shadow to appear would be human. On the Eidolon, Rhea received daily reports of surrender transmissions from frightened governments. She listened to each one in silence, saying nothing. When asked why they didn't demand control, she only said, "Control is not the goal. Fear is." Commander Arlen finally asked the question everyone on the bridge was too afraid to voice. "Admiral, when does it end? How much vengeance is enough?" Rhea's gaze lingered on the stars. "When they stop calling us monsters," she said softly, "and start calling us survivors." Outside the viewport, the fleet drifted quietly, forming lines that stretched across the dark horizon. No one spoke. No one dared. The universe had fallen into the deepest silence it had ever known, an unnatural calm where the only sound was the hum of human engines waiting in the dark. Then, from somewhere far away, a signal appeared on the edge of the map. A weak, flickering transmission. It wasn't Alari, or Dominion, or Council. It was human. A colony thought lost long ago, sending a desperate message. This is Nova Terra. Survivors of the old war. We see your ships. We've been waiting. Ria's breath caught. For the first time in years, her expression softened. Prepare a channel, she said. Bring them home. As the fleet turned toward the signal, the stars ahead seemed to brighten. Humanity's fire, once buried under ashes, burned again, cold, steady, and endless. And somewhere in the vast dark, the voice of an old recording echoed once more. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity endures. The stars above Nova Terra glowed with faint gold light, reflecting across the massive human fleet that had emerged from the dark. The planet below was scarred, half its surface turned to glass from ancient bombardments, yet faint clusters of light dotted its continents, human light. Survivors. For the first time since the siege of Sol, Admiral Ria Voss saw another world carrying the breath of her species. On the Eidolon's bridge, the crew stood in silence as the planet filled the viewport. Commander Arlen whispered, almost to himself, they made it. After all this time. Ria said nothing. Her heart pounded, but her face stayed still, eyes sharp as she studied the readings. Millions of life signs. Human genetic signatures. Entire settlements. The impossible had happened, pockets of humanity had survived beyond the fall. A transmission came through. The voice was rough, male, older than her. This is Governor Elias Rourke of Nova Terra. Identification confirmed, Earthborn Admiral. It's been a long time since we've heard from home. Ria leaned forward. Governor Rourke, this is Admiral Ria Voss, United Terran Fleet. We've come to bring you back. Rourke laughed softly, a tired sound. You're a few decades late, Admiral. We stopped waiting for rescue after the first century. You were written off as lost, she said. And yet here we are, Rourke replied. We've built what we could. Fought off raiders. Hid from empires. But I see what you've brought. His voice hardened. 200,000 warships. That's not a rescue fleet, Admiral. That's a storm. Ria didn't deny it. The galaxy made us beg for mercy once. We won't beg again. There was a long silence. Then Rourke said, come down and talk. When Ria stepped onto Nova Terra's surface, the wind hit her face like a whisper from an older Earth. The land was dry and red, but alive. Children ran through the dust, their laughter echoing in the distance. The ruins of ancient cities had been built over with human ingenuity, steel, solar towers, makeshift green domes growing food. People stared at her uniform with disbelief. To them, she was a ghost from myth. Rourke met her at the base of a tower made from shipwreck parts. He was tall, his beard gray, his hands scarred. You're really from Earth, he said. Ria nodded. We rebuilt. Quietly. We waited. And now? Rourke asked. Now you bring the galaxy to its knees? We bring justice. Rourke frowned. Justice or vengeance? Ria looked around at the people, the children, the sky. Both. He sighed. You don't know what's been happening out here. The aliens didn't just attack us. They fought each other for our bones. They're afraid of us, but they don't understand why. That's the point, Ria said. They don't have to understand. They just have to remember. Later that night, the two of them stood on a high ridge overlooking the horizon. Above them, human ships shimmered like stars, silent and waiting. Rourke turned to her. You could burn the galaxy, Admiral. But what then? Ashes don't rebuild civilizations. She didn't respond at first. Then, quietly, she said, you think I haven't asked myself that every day? Then stop, he said simply. Stop asking, and start building again. Her gaze hardened. We can't rebuild until the ones who broke us are gone. And when they're gone? Ria stared into the night. Then we begin the reclamation. The word hung in the air like a promise. A week later, Nova Terra's flag was raised beside Earth's. The lost colony joined the fleet, bringing hundreds of smaller ships and thousands of veterans hardened by survival. The combined armada filled the void, their engines like suns across the black. Hera, the fleet's AI, calculated new routes, new objectives. Phase 2 initiated, it said in its calm, chilling voice. Rhea stood before the hollow map of the galaxy, her officers assembled around her. The Dominion is broken. The Council is fractured. The Illyri are silent. The galaxy has no leadership. Arlen nodded. And you mean to replace it? She looked at him. Not replace. Reclaim. Humanity built the old networks of trade and peace long before they turned on us. We gave them unity. They gave us extinction. It's time to take back what was ours. The fleet's orders spread through encrypted channels. They would not destroy planets, they would occupy them. Not through conquest, but through silence and precision. They would dismantle military powers, remove corrupt rulers, and rebuild worlds in the human image. Not saviors. Not conquerors. Architects of a new order. But the galaxy didn't see it that way. To them, the Reclamation Protocol was the beginning of humanity's empire. On the Outer Rim, the first operation began. Human fleets descended on a war-torn world where alien slavers ruled. They cut through orbital defenses without firing a shot, disabling every weapon system through unknown means. Soldiers landed, not to kill, but to release. Chains were broken, prisons opened. When it was over, the humans left behind water, food, and power. Then they vanished back into the stars. Across the galaxy, new stories began to spread, not of destruction, but of liberation. People whispered of silent human ships appearing, helping, leaving nothing but the faint mark of a red star on walls or ruins. The symbol of the Terran fleet. But fear remained. Even those who were freed were afraid of their rescuers. The humans never stayed long enough to explain. In the dark heart of the Eidolon, Rhea watched reports come in. Worlds turning to her cause. Old enemies surrendering without battle. Humanity rising again, not as ghosts of vengeance, but as the architects of a new dawn. And yet, deep inside, she felt unease. The silence between stars was growing. The galaxy's fear had turned to awe. And awe, she knew, was only another kind of power, a dangerous one. Commander Arlen entered quietly. Phase 2 is complete. The galaxy's listening, Admiral. Rhea turned toward the viewport. The stars glimmered faintly, each one a promise or a warning. Then let's speak, she said. Outside, the ships of humanity spread through the void like a tide returning to shore, and every world that looked up into the night sky whispered the same thought, half terror, half wonder. The humans are building something new. The galaxy had learned to live with fear. Worlds once bright with trade and life now moved in whispers, each night sky haunted by the memory of human warships passing silently through. Yet beneath the fear, something else began to stir, resentment. The alien empires, humiliated and cornered, were beginning to remember their pride. In the void between sectors, the surviving leaders of the major powers met in secret. They gathered aboard a neutral station that drifted near the edge of a dead star, its light long faded. The air inside the chamber was heavy with tension. The Zarth Grand Marshal Renix sat across from the Illyri Chancellor Eivor, their guards watching each other with barely concealed hatred. Around them hovered representatives of smaller powers, fractured, desperate remnants of the old order. Renix broke the silence first. They are rebuilding an empire, he said, voice low and gravelly. Every world they touch becomes theirs, willingly or not. If we don't stop them now, there will be no galaxy left for us to rule. Eivor folded her thin, shimmering hands. You've tried stopping them before, she said coldly. We all have. You saw what happened to your fleets. That was before, Renix said. Now, we have unity. Combined intelligence, new weapons. He nodded to an officer, who activated a holographic projection in the center of the room, a massive ring structure orbiting a blue gas giant. The Omega Array. Built in secret after Sol fell. Designed to tear apart the fabric of space itself. It can destroy a fleet in seconds. Eivor stared at it, unblinking. You intend to use that on them? Renix's eyes hardened. It's our only chance. Humanity's strength lies in their unity. We'll show them what it feels like to lose everything again. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Eivor whispered, you'll start another war. Renix gave a dark smile. War never ended. Meanwhile, aboard the Eidolon, Admiral Rhea Voss studied the reports coming in from the reclamation front. The fleet had spread far, too far. Humanity's strength had become its weakness. Her armadas were now scattered across 3 quadrants, establishing outposts, protecting freed worlds, guiding trade. They were becoming builders again. And builders, she knew, were vulnerable. Commander Arlen approached her. Long-range scans picked up something unusual, Admiral. Massive energy readings near the Argath sector. The source is artificial. Unknown design. Rhea turned sharply. Show me. The hologram bloomed in the air. The shape was unmistakable, a colossal ring, rotating slowly, its core glowing with unstable energy. The readings were off the charts. Hera, Rhea called to the ship's AI, analysis. Energy output equivalent to 10 to the power of 18 joules per second, the AI replied. Based on trajectory and design, possible function, gravitic or dimensional weapon. Probability of alien origin, 97%. Arlen frowned. They're building something to fight us. Rhea's eyes darkened. Then we destroy it before it's ready. The fleet moved fast. Hundreds of ships converged on the Argath sector, emerging from warp like a storm. The Omega Array came into view, a glittering ring the size of a small moon. Dozens of alien ships surrounded it, forming a protective cordon. The moment the humans appeared, the alien fleets opened fire. The void lit up with plasma and ion bursts, but the human formation didn't break. The Nemesis led the charge, its hull glowing as it absorbed the first wave. Human counterfire followed, beams of light so bright they cut through shields like air. Inside the array's control core, Grand Marshal Renix stood before a panel of energy conduits. Power it up. He barked. Sir, it's unstable, a technician shouted. If we push the charge too high. Do it, Renix roared. Better to burn than to kneel. The array's inner ring began to spin faster, light gathering at its center. A deep vibration rolled through the structure, shaking the ships nearby. The humans realized what was happening. Admiral, Arlen shouted, they're trying to trigger a spatial collapse. Rhea's voice cut through the chaos. All ships, fire on the core. The fleet unleashed everything, missiles, beams, kinetic strikes. The void became a field of light. The Omega Array's shields failed. Its surface cracked, molten light pouring out. Renix watched the readings spike. The weapon was reaching overload. He smiled grimly. They'll remember this. Then the array imploded. A white sphere of energy expanded outward, swallowing everything in its path. Ships vanished, debris vaporized, stars dimmed. The explosion didn't create sound, it erased it. When the light faded, the entire Argath sector was gone. On the Eidolon, emergency alarm screamed. The ship had barely escaped, its outer hull scorched. Rhea steadied herself against the console, her vision swimming. Damage report, she ordered. Hera's voice came through, fractured but steady. 72 ships lost. Entire sector destabilized. Subspace interference spreading. Estimated containment, impossible. Rhea stared at the blank space where a star system had once existed. They destroyed their own worlds to stop us. Arlen's face was pale. They'd rather die than submit. Rhea turned away. Then they'll die. But as her fleet regrouped, something unexpected happened. New signals began appearing, transmissions from alien worlds untouched by war. Messages not of hatred, but of surrender. We will join you. We will follow the Terran order. Just keep us safe. The destruction of Argath had terrified the galaxy even more than humanity ever could. In a single act of desperation, the alien powers had undone themselves. The people, the civilians, the outcasts, they no longer trusted their rulers. They looked to the humans instead. Rhea saw the reports pile up. They're coming to us, Arlen said. Worlds, whole systems, they want our protection. Rhea didn't smile. They think we're their saviors now. That's how it starts. She turned to the stars, her reflection caught in the glass. The empires are falling, Commander. Not by our weapons. By their own fear. And far below, across countless worlds, beings of every race looked to the night sky and whispered in awe and dread, the same three words that had reshaped history. The humans are coming. For the first time in centuries, Sol burned bright again. The blue planet that had once been the grave of humanity was alive with motion, shipyards in orbit, city lights flickering across the continents, the quiet hum of rebirth. From the blackened ruins of the old Earth defense network, towers of glass and steel now reached into the heavens. Every orbit was filled with vessels carrying supplies, colonists, and soldiers returning home from the war that no longer needed to be fought. The galaxy had changed. The empires that had once ruled were gone, toppled not by destruction but by fear and collapse. Humanity hadn't needed to conquer them, their shadows had done that for them. The mere presence of Terran fleets above the stars had been enough. Entire civilizations surrendered without battle. Others turned to the humans willingly, hoping for safety beneath their banner. The reclamation had succeeded. The galaxy was quiet once more. Too quiet. Inside the command center of the Eidolon, Admiral Rhea Voss stood before a massive viewport overlooking the reconstructed Earth. The familiar curve of oceans and continents stirred something in her chest, a feeling she had long thought lost. Commander Arlen joined her, carrying a data tablet. "Final status report from the outer sectors," he said. "The Dominion remnants have surrendered. The Council worlds have requested formal integration into the Terran Alliance. Even the Aleri have sent envoys asking for partnership." "Partnership," Rhea repeated softly, as if testing the word. Arlen nodded. "You've done it, Admiral. We've done it. Humanity is the center again." Rhea didn't answer immediately. Her reflection on the glass looked older than she felt. "No, Commander. We're just the loudest voice left in the silence." Arlen frowned. "You sound disappointed." "I am," she said quietly. "Because it was too easy. They didn't fight for peace, they just ran from fear." He hesitated. "You think they'll rise against us again?" "They always do," she replied. Before he could respond, the ship's AI, Hera, appeared in the air beside them as a flickering blue figure. "Admiral," it said, "incoming long-range signal. Source, Sol, surface origin, not registered to any existing base." Rhea turned sharply. "Who's transmitting?" "Unknown. The signal contains human encryption, but older than anything in current use. Estimated origin, 2 centuries before present." "Put it through." The viewport darkened, replaced by static, then the image of an old man appeared. He wore a tattered Earth Fleet uniform, the kind used before the fall. His hair was white, his voice faint but clear. "This is Admiral Elias Mercer," he said, his eyes sunken but bright. "If anyone is hearing this, it means the Sol Defense Vault has been reopened. This is not a distress call. It's a warning." Rhea's heart stopped. Mercer. The last admiral of the Siege of Sol. The man who had given the order to destroy Earth's own orbital cities to deny them to the enemy. A ghost of history. Mercer's image flickered. "If humanity survives, if we rebuild, remember this, vengeance is not victory. I left behind a code in the vault. Use it, and you'll learn why the empires came for us in the first place." Then the message ended. The bridge fell silent. Arlen spoke first. "The vault. We thought it was destroyed." Rhea stared at the empty screen. So did everyone else. "Hera, locate the source." "Coordinates locked," the AI replied. "Vault is buried beneath the ruins of Old Geneva, Europe. Deep subsurface." Rhea straightened. "Prepare a drop team." Hours later, a shuttle descended through the clouds of Earth. Below, green forests had reclaimed the cities, wrapping around towers of metal and glass like patient vines. The ruins of Old Geneva were a scar on the land, black stone, twisted steel, half buried in time. The team moved carefully, their boots echoing through ancient tunnels until they reached a massive door sealed with the faded emblem of the old United Terran Command. When the door opened, a rush of stale air escaped, carrying the scent of rust and dust. Inside, lights flickered to life, one by one, revealing rows of terminals, databanks, and the skeletal remains of long-dead soldiers still guarding their posts. At the center of the chamber was a single console, still powered, still waiting. Rhea approached it, her gloved hand hovering over the interface. The screen came alive. "Access granted, Admiral Elias Mercer. File designation, Project Origin." The words filled the air. Then the screen changed to show a star map, the Milky Way, marked with hundreds of red points. Each point pulsed faintly. Arlen's voice trembled. Those are human colonies. But not ours." Rhea zoomed in. Each red point contained a name, Erebus Prime. Solara. Bastion. Eden 9. None of them were in the current records. "These aren't lost colonies," Rhea said softly. "They're forgotten." The data scrolled faster. Notes, reports, mission logs. The truth began to unfold. Long before the Siege of Sol, humanity had already expanded far beyond what the galaxy knew. Hundreds of hidden colonies had been sent across the stars, some through experimental gates, others into uncharted sectors. They were designed to be secret, isolated, self-sufficient. When the alien empires first encountered humanity, they hadn't been afraid of their strength. They'd been afraid of their reach. Mercer's recorded voice echoed again through the chamber. The galaxy thought we were one world. They were wrong. We were many. And when Sol fell, the others stayed silent, waiting. Not out of fear, but out of strategy. Rhea's hands clenched. You mean? They've been out there, Arlen said. All this time. The console's final message appeared in stark white letters. When the time comes, Sol will call to the stars. And the rest will answer. The transmission ended. Rhea stood in silence, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Outside, through the cracked walls of the vault, the first light of dawn crept across the ruined city. They're not gone, she whispered. They're waiting for us. Arlen looked at her, realization dawning in his eyes. Admiral. If that's true, if they still exist, then humanity isn't one fleet anymore. No, Rhea said quietly. It's a species waking up. Above the earth, the stars shimmered faintly, and somewhere in the void beyond known space, ancient signals began to stir, faint and rhythmic, answering a call that had been silent for 200 years. The galaxy thought the storm had passed. But the storm had only been gathering strength. And soon, it would arrive. The stars changed. Across the edges of known space, the black void shimmered with light, one pulse, then another, like a heartbeat echoing through the cosmos. Ancient transmitters, buried for centuries, came alive. Each carried the same signal, the same frequency. A voice. A human voice. This is Sol, it said. We are awake. Every listening post, every station still standing, heard it. Alien worlds froze in disbelief. The message wasn't loud, but it carried power, the kind that bent empires and silenced galaxies. The forgotten colonies were answering. On the bridge of the Eidolon, Admiral Rhea Voss stood motionless as new contacts filled the screen. They appeared like fireflies in the dark, massive fleets emerging from beyond mapped space. Ships of unfamiliar designs, yet distinctly human. Some were sleek and golden, others angular and black, but every one bore the red insignia of Sol. Commander Arlen whispered, how many are there? Hera's voice came, hushed but certain. Current count, 1.6 million ships. Growing. Rhea's breath caught. It wasn't an army, it was a civilization. The lost colonies hadn't died. They had evolved. Alone in the dark, they had become something greater, something stranger. A transmission came through, direct and clear. A woman appeared on the screen, her features human but her eyes faintly luminous. Admiral Voss of Sol, she said. I am Lyra of Bastion. We received your call. Rhea studied her. You've been watching us. Lyra nodded. Waiting. The galaxy needed to remember who we are. You showed them. What happens now? Rhea asked quietly. Lyra's expression was unreadable. Now we decide what kind of species we will be. You brought fear. We will bring balance. The screen dimmed. The fleets began to form around Sol, hundreds of thousands of ships aligning like stars forming a constellation. Humanity was no longer one world, one people, it was many, united across light years. Arlen looked at Rhea. Admiral, what do we tell them? The galaxy's watching. Rhea turned to the stars, her voice calm, almost reverent. Tell them the silence is over. Outside, the combined human armada ignited their engines, casting white fire across the void. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy did not tremble in fear, it held its breath in awe. The age of darkness was done. Humanity had come home.